Hi, and welcome to Off the Beaten Tracks, the only show on YouTube that keeps rising up inside you like a surprise high colonic.
For my next album, I'll be doing Livingston Taylor, Over the Rainbow. Got this for $1 on Black Friday. Obviously, this is the lesser-known brother of James Taylor, but the far more alive brother than Alex. This is on Capricorn. I think Alex was on Capricorn as well. This is not a bad album. I think the first side is way better than the second side on this. And there are some good songs, but by the second side, I think he's kind of run out of ideas. He writes most of the songs on this. The cover of Somewhere Over the Rainbow is even more laid back than the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow usually is, which is pretty laid back. The chorus, where da 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 da, he even slows that down. That's too robust for Livingston Taylor to sing, so he does it kind of halftime. I'm not a musician, I don't know how these things work, but he manages to slow that down, so the whole thing kind of just drifts along at an even pace. I would give this a 6. Especially for the first side, without the second side. I would give probably the first side 6.5, second side 5. So let's give it a 6 in total. And the cover, interesting, 6, 5.5, somewhere in there. You'd probably be better off with the brother, but again, the first side of this is pretty good, well worth checking out. My next album is this one. This is Rabbit. This is Broken Arrows, and unfortunately, I know people gripe about this all the time in the BC. Somebody was kind enough to write WDFM here, and WDFM here as some sort of magic marker deodorant for this young gentleman. It was 25 cents at one time, which somebody was good enough to put in pen on his leg rather than a price tag. So besides that, and the wonderfully tasseled jacket, Mr. Rabbit, his real name is actually John Bundrick. And this was a blind buy, but it turns out that this guy has a huge rock and roll resume. As a keyboard player, he played on Johnny Nash's I Can See Clearly Now. He's played with everybody. Bob Marley, Eric Burden, Donovan, Joe Capaldi, Joan Armatrading, Roger Waters, Mick Jagger, Fairport Convention. He was the principal musician in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Think of that. And then he got involved with The Who, and he plays on several of The Who albums. And he played with The Who, not only tours with them, but he played with The Who at the Super Bowl. Now for this album here, he's not the best vocalist in the world. He wrote all the songs. This grew on me. Just from first listening to second, you kind of go, sometimes you don't listen quite intently enough, or the hooks are subtle enough that they don't kind of burrow until you get to that second or third listening. First thing, the instrumentals are very, very tasty on this. He has Jim Capaldi playing on it, who he's played with, obviously, Simon Kirke from Free and Bad Company. I quite like this. I think there's some really good stuff on this album. I'm going to give this album a 6.5 to 7. I think it deserves that. The album cover would probably get a 6.5 from me, possibly, just because I like suede. But unfortunately, with the WDFM and the 25 cents on his leg, I'm going to have to drop this down to a 3. Sometimes you have to draw that line, folks. The next album I will be doing is Dave Bradstreet. This is Black and White. Picked this up in a thrift store for a couple of bucks. It's on Street Records, right there. David is a Canadian folkie. He wrote a minor hit for Valdi at one time. I think it was called Renaissance, off his first album. This is very nicely played. Part of the problem on this album is the songs, for the most part, are very simple and have very simple choruses. Back to Basics, which is the lead-off song, and this is a prime example. it just sounds like something a really good songwriter could write 10 minutes. The second song, Torpedoes in the Mainstream, is maybe the best song on this album. It will remind you a little of Bruce Cockburn Inner City Front era, and is a little more up-tempo, but yet still reserved. Jane Siberry sings background vocals on this. Two things really hold this album back. One is the weak vocals. He's just not the world's best singer, and the mediocre songs. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, then it's a piece of crap. But no, again, Torpedoes is a pretty good song, and some of the playing is very good. It ends okay there's a rocker called Taking the Long Way Home. And, listening to it, I thought, if you put some crunchy guitars and some big fat drums on this would make a pretty good hard rock song, or maybe even a power pop song. A little jangly Go Records sort of way. And you'd have something there. But again, this is his vocals and is kind of a limp delivery. Even the cover on this is not a very good song. He covers a song which has a great title, something like Blues in Your Shoes, or Your Shoes Are Blues, something like that. Blues is like shoes. There you go. Not a very good song. I have another album by him right here. This is, I think, his first album. This has Renaissance on it, which was the minor hit. But we're not discussing this album. We're discussing this album. And I'm going to give this a 5.5, I think. And the half really is for Torpedoes in the Mainstream, which I quite liked. For my next album, I'm going to be doing Iris Robin Avec Toi. And Avec Toi does not deceive you. This album is in French. Pick this up for $1 on Black Friday. It's on the RCA label. It's mono, for you people who love mono out there. I really like this. She put out only 2 albums back in the early 60s. I think this is like 61 or something like that. Her vocals can be a little cutesy at times, but they don't quite go over that line where it becomes annoying. There's a song on this called Tu l'aimes encore, which is one of the only missteps. Her voice doesn't really have the kind of Edith Piaf, Cilla Black power that is needed for the song, and the instrumentation is too down in the mix. It just doesn't fit what the song is trying to do. You can hear that big French belty thing, but restrained. So it's just it's a missed mark. One of the very few on this album. I really like this cover. I'm going to give the cover 7.5 to 7 3/4. I'm going to give the album, despite that one small failing, 7.5. Very enjoyable. If this was in English, maybe it would be an 8. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe still 7.5. For her next album, I have this. I couldn't believe my luck when I saw this in the bins at the charity store. This is our Man Crichton. It's the original cast recording with Kenneth Moore and Millicent Martin. And I just love this cover. I'm going to give this cover a 9. I'm just going to say it right out. This is an import. And this kind of thing is actually, it's on the Parlophone label right there. These are generally just scratched to shit. This is in excellent condition. The cover, which, it's that thin English papery covers as opposed to the kind of more cardboardy stuff we have here, even that's in good shape. This has some wonderfully British names in the cast. There's Glyn Worsnip and Dilys Watling. I just think that's perfect. This was produced by George Martin. It was written by J.M. Barrie, who also wrote Peter Pan. It's an okay musical. The first song is called Tweenie, which is basically its answer to How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria. It just kind of explains who the main character is and what the consternation everybody has about her, and then it all comes to fruition in the end and everybody's happy. The songs on this sound a little alike in the way they're presented. Noel Coward could have knocked this out of the park. While there are some nicely put together couplets in here and some wit, Noel would have done a much better job on that. Millicent Martin is sort of a Cockney Ethel Merman. She can really belt it out. I like Little Darling. I thought that was a very cute song on here. I'm guessing this deserves like a 7.25. That's where I would put this album, just because of the time it was recorded and just the feel, and I really like this stuff. If Noel Coward had done this album, it probably would have gotten a 9. That's all I'm going to say. Noel, if you're out there, get to the piano.
Okay.